So I genuinely thought taking my autistic son abroad was a bad idea. And not because I didn't want to take him or because he didn't deserve it, but because as a parent of a child that's autistic, I started thinking, what could go wrong? My son's 7, autistic, nonverbal, isn't potty trained yet. He likes routines, familiarity, and suddenly I was planning on taking him on an aeroplane, into an airport, to a different country. So before we left, I was preparing for disaster. But little did I know, the person that's struggling or would struggle the most with this trip wasn't my son. It was going to be me. The holiday started weeks before we got on the plane. Because when you have a child with additional needs, you don't just pack a suitcase. You prepare for every possible scenarios and situations, everything that could possibly go wrong. So I packed extra clothes. And then I packed another bag of extra clothes. Nappies, wipes, snacks, snacks for the snacks, and then even more snacks. Because one thing that you tend to learn is a hungry child is a very difficult child. And when your child struggles with communication, you don't always get much of a warning either. So I packed all of his favorite things: cookies, snacks, sweets, drinks, multiple packs of Skittles. And that might seem a bit random, but those Skittles become the most useful things I've taken on the trip with me. And I'll explain why later. And I also bought this thing from eBay. It's like a safety strap that you strap to your arm and your child's arm, where you can lock the one on his arm so he can't just unzip it and try and run away. And honestly, it was a lifesaver. It wasn't about restricting his movement. It was just that safety, that less pressure that I could put on myself. Just knowing that if my son did try to run, he wouldn't get too far. And it also allowed him to just walk around freely without me constantly having to grab his arm and just make sure he doesn't move anywhere. Essentially, I was just reducing enough anxiety to allow us to function. So before we flew, I contacted the airline, let them know that my child had autism. I wasn't expecting much, but they were very helpful. They gave us priority boarding. They gave us that lanyard that allowed their staff to know that my child would need some help. They even offered a wheelchair. They explained all of the support available from Heathrow all the way to our destination and the support that we'd get over there. And I immediately felt less nervous. Still nervous, but slightly less. And one thing that I've learned from this trip is that as a parent of a child with additional needs, we often go in expecting people not to understand, often go in expecting to apologize for our child's behavior. But I was surprised of how many people were understanding, from the airline to the people that we met along the way. Now, the airport was the thing I was most afraid of. Now, before that though, we took our son, so this is his first ever trip. We decided to choose Switzerland. The reason being is it's only a 1 hour 20-minute flight. So it's not too much for him to bear, too much for him to get overwhelmed with. We thought we'll test the water. If it does well, we could possibly go on more trips. If it doesn't, then dad and son will not go on any more trips. And because we had priority boarding and that extra support and help, we didn't have to wait in line for too long. We went from Terminal 2, which is good because Terminal 4 is usually really busy, really packed. Terminal 2 wasn't as bad. And one thing I especially liked, because my son wasn't potty trained, the bathrooms there, especially the changing room for kids, they were really clean and really useful. Every time I needed to change him, I could take him there, change him, no problem. Now, he did show some signs of overwhelm. I mean, let's face it, for normal adults, grown adults, airports are overwhelming. So just imagine the panic that I was in, thinking how overwhelmed he'd get. But he was curious. He was looking around, he was enjoying himself, he was actually happy. And that's when I realized maybe I underestimated my son. Then came the flight. And if you've flown recently or ever at all, You know something no one ever tells you. You spent ages waiting on the plane for the plane to actually move. And my son was getting restless. He was getting bored. And I was thinking, here we go. He's going to try and get off his seat. He's going to scream. He's going to yell. He's going to cry. But he didn't do any of that. He was a bit restless. But it wasn't anything that major. And what I did is, when we sat down, straight away I strapped him in. I put his belt on. I gave him his drink. I gave him a bit of snack. Just whatever I could do to keep him calm. Whenever he seemed a bit too restless, I'd play with him, tickle him, try and distract him. Eventually we took off. My son loved that bit. He looked out the window, he laughed his head off, he was excited, he was amazed. I mean, up until now, he only saw this on YouTube. Now he was experiencing it. Now, there was a bit of discomfort when his ears popped. This wasn't surprising, it happens to us all. And in that moment, all I did is I covered his ears, I gave him a hug until the pressure died down a little bit. Eventually, the plane settled and we were in the air, to that point where when you look out the window, it looks like it's not even moving. This is where the Skittles came in, because I opened the tray that you've got attached to the seat, opened his Skittles, put it there. To my surprise, he didn't actually eat it. He started to play with it, organizing the colors, putting them in rows, and it became like a form of entertainment. And eventually he just became so engrossed into it, the journey went by without an issue. But, and here's the thing, as soon as we landed, he was ready to get off. He took his seatbelt off, he was trying to get off, all of that stuff. And when other passengers got off their seats, now this is what normally happens if you've been on a flight. The plane lands and you're told you can take your seatbelts off. The plane isn't actually ready to let people off yet, but people will automatically get up and start waiting to get off. And that's a good 10 minutes. So when he saw that, he got up and he wanted to push past everyone and get off, and now he was really panicking. I tried to pick him up, he was kicking people, he was trying to push people out of the way, I kept on apologizing to everyone. And that definitely was the hardest bit. We somehow managed through it. I kept on holding him, trying to calm him down, give him drinks after drinks, and whatever I could do, really, just to try and maintain him for those 10 minutes. But as soon as we got off, he was perfectly calm. He wasn't crying, he wasn't throwing a tantrum, he was just back to being excited again. And on the way back, we repeated the exact same thing. And those Skittles, honestly, they were a lifesaver. So we got to our destination, got to the hotel, went and got some food, came back, and obviously the first night was just about getting food and getting to sleep. I was worried about that, because when we've taken short trips in the UK, my son would never go to sleep. He'd actually insist I bring him back home the same day. But somehow here he knew, Dad doesn't have a car, we've taken a plane, we're not even in the same country. So he actually did go to sleep in the hotel, which was just amazing, and also made me realize that he actually understands a lot more than I give him credit for, which is a learning curve for me. The next day, however, we had a whole day of trips planned. We took the Golden Pass from Geneva to Interlaken. The view was lovely. Again, I thought, okay, how is he going to respond in a train now? But he absolutely loved it. We applied the same trick. Give him drinks, give him his Skittles, and he just played with them. He looked out the window, he saw the view. I mean, the view itself for sensory needs, this was just amazing for him. We did meet a couple there, and they absolutely got on with my son, and he was loving it. He had people to talk to, he had someone to play with. A lady actually played with him and his Skittles, organizing them. He was entertained throughout. Another thing that worried me is feeding him, because he's got a timetable. He eats certain kind of food. How would we feed him, especially being on a train and all of those good stuff? What we did is we took food with us on the train. We just took it out, we just fed him. He did make a mess, which I cleaned up, but I was able to feed him on the train. I was able to go and take him to the toilets when I needed to change him. And amazingly, they were all so clean. It was just so convenient. Were there difficult moments? Of course there was. When you're raising a child with additional needs, there always is. But it was a lot fewer than I imagined. You see, I built a mountain in my head, a mountain of fear, and most of them never happened. And that's going to do it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this, please do consider subscribing. And if you've taken a trip with your child, let me know in the comment section below how it went, what kind of fears you had, what you did to overcome it. And until next time, like always, stay safe.